1, 2, 3, the long feed. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Lawn Feed. I am Andrew, the Dad Bod Lawn, and with me is Chris Ope, It's Mo Time, and Vince of Rooted Lawn Co. Thanks for having me back for another episode, fellas. It's good to see you guys.
It's good to be back.
And to all you listeners, thanks for tuning into another episode. And while I'm thinking about it, if you guys like this podcast, wouldn't mind spending a minute maybe giving us a rating on whatever podcast platform you listen on. We'd really appreciate that. And same thing with YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channels if you enjoy watching our pretty faces, because you can actually see our faces on YouTube, guys, if you didn't know.
Great voices for radio.
But if you head over to our website, you can learn more about us and our podcast, because it has all the links you need right over there. Also, some premium tees and apparel that will most likely make your lawn look better. It's not going to make it worse, so it's worth a shot. Head over to thelawnfeed.com, check out that swag. And I appreciate you guys tuning in, because we are talking about my favorite season. And what season is that? It's a season of football and flannel. The season where it's okay for everything to be pumpkin flavored, from lattes to beer to pie. The season of apple picking, where freshly pressed cider and donuts go hand in hand.
We're going to have to rope you back in here, buddy.
No, guys, this is my favorite time of year. We're talking about fall lawn care tips, the do's, the don'ts, what you should be doing to get your lawn ready to tuck it in for winter. But before we can go about that, and enough about the donuts, I'm sorry.
Are we just tucking it in? Is that what we do?
Yes.
Just tuck it into the flannel?
We're just going to tuck it into the flannel and go night-night, boys.
All
But
right.
before we can do that, we got to talk about some dad stuff, the wins and losses. So, Chris, go ahead and introduce this segment for us.
Well, let's just tuck that one away and go straight into Dad's W's and L's. So as we always do, Dad's W's and L's, this portion of the podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Forefathers, a polo company that is elevating dad apparel for the DIY dad with that OG turf polo and the hot off the press turf polo hoodie, which, by the way, that thing is real nice.
Most dope.
I like a good hoodie. That's a good hoodie.
I didn't know what to expect. I was expecting like an actual hoodie, but it's like
a
the
lightweight
polo in a hoodie version,
but it's
a little thicker.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like
It really is.
any weather type of hoodie.
Yeah.
Any scenario type of hoodie. Awesome. Go check it out. So we have a special hookup with them. As always, use code THELAWNFEED for 20% off your entire order at shopforefathers.com. Go check them out. They've got a whole bunch of cool stuff regardless of your hobby. We know you guys are all lawn nuts, but regardless of anything, great gift season coming up. Go check them out. 20% off with code THELAWNFEED. But we need to talk about some wins and losses. Vince, hit us with a few wins and losses of your parenthood with your family and kids.
Yeah, so let's start off with the W, right? Let's start off with the win. I think a couple episodes.
Does it involve getting tucked in?
No.
Okay.
it's a loss then.
No. So a few months back in the summer, I mentioned about the girls getting on the Strider bike and having fun with those and blowing, my expectations. Well, I was looking on Facebook Marketplace, trying to buy a used one. I said, you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm going to just buy them. So I bought 2 new Strider bikes for them, and it's been raining from the tropical storm, but I still wanted to give it to them. So I unboxed them and set them all up, and we put them inside, and they've been riding all over the house with them and just having a blast and just learning the whole put your feet up and balancing and everything. So it's a lot of fun, and there's a new component to it because the floors are really they're LVT, so, and the tires on the Strider bikes are plastic. So when they go around the turns, they kind of skid out and drift. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. But then loss would be, fall is great, but it also is the season for a lot of colds. So we're kind of battling a couple different colds, snotty noses, and all that good stuff. And usually, what comes with snotty noses is some bad behavior. So we'll get through it. We'll get through it. But
your kids have bad behavior sometimes.
I think he's talking about himself. He gets bad
I get
when
cranky.
he gets sick.
Yeah,
it's a him issue, not a kid's issue.
Yeah.
I knew it was fall the day that my wife came back, stocked up from Costco with like the 24-pack of Dayquil and NyQuil. I was like, it's this season again. Good to see you.
All last weekend, I had a cold. Now my wife's got it. And
chicken noodle soup.
No, I was camping, so you're limited to what you can have there. I just mostly had some beer.
That helps.
Yeah,
it's like the same thing.
You just push through. It's tailgating season. You just got to treat it like tailgating season.
Just tuck the cold away and
tuck it away.
Tuck that bad boy away.
Put it in that flannel and night.
Power through.
That's exactly right.
Let's talk about some grass.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Vince. Like Chris and I were talking about earlier, like we've been pretty much talking ourselves off a ledge here with our kids. It's just, I don't know. It's been an adjustment. So let's talk about grass instead. I think
grass babies.
That's a good escape. Grass babies, indeed, because if you guys have been following us for the last few episodes, we've been talking about partial renovations, full renovations, overseeds, and if you guys have been doing these projects in your own lawns or wherever, please send us pictures, videos. If you're posting them on social media, tag us. We love a good before and after. And if you guys tag us, we'll be happy to share it to our stories for other people to see. We are, I don't know, I think all three of us really enjoy lawn renovation season, as exhausting as it can be. So seeing everybody else and maybe some people that we have helped along the way, it would be really cool. So send them our way. Going into fall here, or now that it is fall, it is the best time to get your lawn ready for next year. So you're already thinking past winter here. So what you do now is going to really impact spring and coming out of spring, being strong for summer. That way it can be tucked away again next fall, right? So we have been aerating, dethatching, seeding, and feeding. But let's talk about some of the other things that you should be doing in the fall to get your lawn ready for next season.
Yeah, like you said, as you ended that, feeding, we don't like to go to bed hungry. We also don't want to, like a bear stocks up on food before he quote unquote hibernates.
Yeah, donuts.
Did you hear about that? The donuts and the bear in Alaska?
No, is that a real thing?
Oh yeah. Just recently there's a bear that
was his name Andrew?
No. There's a bear that up in Alaska, the driver of a donut truck left his back hitch open, and the bear and his cub went in and ate a whole bunch of donuts. So, but like the bear needs the donuts, the lawn needs fertilizer. So let's just let that bear be tucked away and get back to the grass. Yeah, so as you just mentioned about feeding, we definitely want to be feeding our lawns coming into the fall, but also into the winter. But in the springtime, we're used to putting down some slow release fertilizers. In the fall, we want to be more cautious with that because we're going to run into issues of the plants just not being able to uptake those nutrients because temps are starting to get cooler. So if you're, a lot of people, I've been seeing a lot of things like these nitrogen blitzes and everything, and people are just putting down tons of nitrogen, and people think that if I put down a bunch of fertilizer now, it'll stay in the soil all winter long, and then in the spring, it'll have food to eat. It's not necessarily true. If anything, you're going to leach it out, and it's just not good for the environment, and you're wasting your money. So what fertilizer is best for you during the fall? It's going to be those quick release fertilizers because it's going to immediately release those nutrients so the plant has the ability to uptake it as it's still warm. But then as the plant continues to, or as the soil temps continue to drop, you're not going to run into issues of just leaving food on the ground, lack of better terms. So what is the temp that you want to be mindful of? So what is the temp that you want to be mindful of kind of the cutoff of nutrients or putting up fertilizer? That's going to be the 50-degree mark. Or really, if you're done mowing or you're not mowing very frequently, don't be feeding your lawn either. So don't waste your slow release fertilizers for the fall. You can just go ahead and get some of those quick releases. Your ammonium sulfate, Simple One Solutions has some liquid forms of that as well that they carry that's more quick release. There's a bunch of different options out there. Just try and stick with that though.
Yeah, right on. And then, yeah, I mean, from a so there's the feeding aspect. The other thing that changes a little bit is watering, right? You mentioned a couple times what the temperatures are getting cooler. So where I'm at, the highs and lows are drastically different right now. Andrew, you're probably the same. Vince, you're probably right behind us. But depending on where you're at, fall can come in 3 weeks. It could come in a couple months, but the temperatures do drop. If we're growing new grass, we kind of have to be mindful of that as well. We still want those root systems to get a little bit more established. Thus, we are always going to want a little bit more deep and infrequent watering once they do, germinate, and that way they can find that water down a little bit deeper into the soil. But overall, if you're not doing any like new grass or anything of that nature, you're going to be watering less because the temperatures are cooler, right? In terms of in comparison to other seasons, it's an active growing season. Do you need to do it every other day? Probably not. Is it something where you can probably elongate that to once or twice a week? Probably. You just have to use your best judgment with that. Go out and assess where your lawn is at. If you are, what I always do is just go grab a handheld tool that everyone has, a screwdriver, go stick it into your lawn and assess how dry your soil is. If it goes in like a butter knife into butter, your soil is good, right? You're probably got enough moisture in there. If you have to put up a fight, you probably need to water your lawn a little bit. And another good thing to do in the fall to pair with that is core aeration, right? You mentioned it earlier. This is a great time to do that. But if your screwdriver doesn't go into the soil very easily and you have to like give it a fight, your soil's compacted and you need to let that thing breathe, right? So either hiring that out, renting out a core aerator, and going in with a couple, other DIY neighbors is a really good option. And just kind of going from there. It's crazy. My neighbor aerated his lawn about 2 weeks before I did mine, and the difference that you saw, I don't know if you guys have seen just a drastic difference with that, but his rebounded so fast, right? And then we got like pissed on with rain. It was like 4 inches or something like that. And his lawn is like emerald green, looking awesome. And mine is just kind of like trying to stay alive, not in like figuratively speaking, but like his bounced back hard after that. And it makes a huge difference. So just be mindful of watering your habits there, how much you're watering, too little, too much, core aeration, and getting prepped for, having that help you out for the next season upcoming, right? But then mowing is a big one too, right? You got to keep up with, the more you water and feed your lawn, the more you're going to have to mow. So Andrew, talk about that.
Yeah, real quick, when I was thinking about this along the lines of irrigation, also be considering, especially in northern zones, getting those sprinkler lines for in-ground irrigation blown out. It's a busy time of year for if you hire that out for somebody. So maybe you consider contacting people right about now, early October, so that by mid-October they can come and do that for you. Because that's usually the time for me, and I always wait too late, and it's too hard to get a hold of somebody. And your standard little pancake compressor is not going to do the job unless you want to be out there for an hour drinking beer, blowing out your lines. So
just got to tuck those irrigation lines away.
Tuck them away.
You have one of those.
If you're out blowing anything for an hour, you should probably reconsider your hobbies. Just saying.
I mean, leaf blowing.
Here. Yeah. Backpack blowing.
I mean,
it is
blow
fall
all day long.
right? Put on a good pair of noise canceling headphones, listen to some In Sync or whatever.
Great point.
Anyways, let's get back to mowing. We were talking about mowing, and I got a sidetrack once again. It's my bad, guys. This is on me, this uppy. But back to mowing. Now, we're feeding our lawn. The lawn is going to be growing like crazy, right? You may have been in the habit of all summer long, maybe only mowing once a week because the growth stage, this is not growing. Now your lawn is probably really perked up, maybe came out of dormancy, and it's ready to go. And you start feeding it some of those flaming hot Cheetos and it likey. You know what I'm saying?
So I know what you're saying.
Syrup. Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you're being mindful of that 1/3 rule. Never cut off more than 1/3 of the length of that grass blade. So you might have to be mowing twice a week. Get out there and enjoy the mow. It's perfect. I love mowing this time of year because you're not sweating. The temperatures are like perfect. You might have a hoodie from Four Fathers on and a pair of jeans, and you're just enjoying the mow, right? Along the lines of that, make sure you check your lawnmower blades. Make sure they're freshly sharp. You can really lose track of that over the course of a long season, especially when it's constantly hot out and you don't want to be doing anything more than you have to be. Give those a peek. If you need to sharpen them up now. If not, maybe right after your last mow, you get underneath the deck and you take off the blades and you sharpen them over winter when you're looking for something to do. So that when you come out of spring, you're ready to go. Same thing with other mower maintenance, like changing the oil, anything like that, maybe cleaning the deck, all that kind of stuff. You might want to be bagging your clippings if you are possibly breaking that 1/3 rule. You don't want to leave too much clippings on top of the lawn. If you can see clumps, probably a good idea to throw the bagger on. And be sure to be changing up the mowing patterns. This goes for the same thing as all season long. I like to do like an up, down, and then left to right pattern. And then the next week I go diagonal one week or one way and diagonal the other. So I don't mow the same direction more than once every 2 weeks, even though I'm mowing twice a week. This is really going to help the blades from laying down and getting matted. It's going to help get airflow down into those roots, especially if you just dethash and aerated. The whole point of that is to get nutrients and air down into the soil. And if you have grass blades laying down in one direction, that's going to kind of just like be counterproductive to what you just did. And now the next thing is, like, when should you stop mowing your lawn? I mean, it's really going to depend on, like, when does your grass stop growing? Like Vince had mentioned earlier, you're going to stop feeding your lawn when you don't really see it growing anymore. I like to mow a couple notches lower. Like, I normally mow about 3 inches, 3 1/4 in the summer. I like to bring it down to like 2.5 just to tuck it away for winter. It just kind of helps prevent the grass blades from being too tall and laying down with all the snow on it. It might increase snow mold and stuff like that. And I get a lot of questions about, should I be bagging my leaves or mulching?
Bingo.
Go ahead and mulch those things up. You might need to go over multiple times if you have like a decent amount of leaves, but if you just have a little leaf covering, put it back into the soil. There's great nutrients in those leaves. It's going to become organic material and your lawn will absolutely love it. It might not look the greatest necessarily as you're doing it, but you know what? It's not about the now, it's about the later, right? We're getting ready for next season. So don't be afraid to mulch them up and let those backpack blowers just roar, right? You guys like a good blow?
Mm-hmm.
But Vince, what else should people be considering getting ready to go into winter here?
I think there's a lot of things, but we touched on the main. There's one other thing though. If you guys haven't done a soil test, or if you have done a soil test, you probably know your soil pH. And in the spring, we're looking at different ways. So we could be adding sulfur, or we could be adding lime, but you're not adding all of it all at once in the spring. Generally, usually, if you're way off, you're going to want to do two applications, each in the spring and in the fall. So now is actually a really good time to be adding your lime or your sulfur into your fertilizing program. So if you didn't do a soil test, now would be a good time to do it. Just remember that if you've already put down fertilizer, you're probably going to skew the micro and macro nutrients numbers. So don't base any of your fertilizing off of those numbers for this fall. But you can base your pH from those numbers, if that makes sense. So now is a great time to be getting your lime down, getting your sulfur down if you need to.
Well, all right. Well, thanks, Vince. Yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. If you guys have any questions about anything, please drop them in the comments on our YouTube channel, or drop them or send us a DM to either one of our individual channels or the lawn feed. Send us an email. If you have our the website, there's a contact page. Like we said earlier, please send us before and after pictures. And if you have any questions, send those along as well. Get out there, enjoy the mowing those flannels while eating those donuts. And don't forget, Brad15 gets you 15% off at thelawnfeed.com. Have a good fall pumpkin spice latte out.
Let's tuck it in.
See ya.
Tuck it in.
Bye-bye.